I'd like to thank everyone for adjusting to our change of plans. Can't help the weather, but thank you for everyone for being here. I want to thank you for attending the Honor Women Vigil. My name is Alex Isgrig. On behalf of Delta Tau Delta Fraternity, we'd like to say that we are sincerely grateful for the opportunity to bring awareness to the problem of sexual assault. Women who are assaulted are our sisters, our friends, and our girlfriends. We want to end sexual assault so we can protect the women who are in our lives today and the women who will enter our lives in the future. I want to share some facts with you that I hope will impact your perceptions regarding sexual assault. Women ages 16 to 24 experience rape at 4 times higher than the assault rate of all women, making the college years the most vulnerable. About 25% of women in college will be a victim of rape or sexual assault. 90% of rapes on college campuses are acquaintance rapes, meaning that the women know their assailant, and 90% of those rapes involve alcohol. At Purdue, we want to change those statistics, and we can do that by honoring the women on our campus and all the women in our lives. If we honor women, we will protect them, and we will make sure they are safe. If a woman is in the weakened state, treat her as a loved one and take care of her. If a woman is in a vulnerable situation, respect and honor her. Think about the choices you make and be proud by doing the right thing and thereby demonstrating good character. We attend a world-renowned university where we are receiving a first-class education. We want to make the most of our time here and leave as mature adults ready to make our impact on the world. That means we need to conduct ourselves with the utmost respect for each other and ourselves. We want Purdue to be known as a campus where dignity and excellence prevail. Let's end sexual assault by honoring and respecting all of the women in our lives, and that starts tonight. It is my privilege to be able to introduce our next speaker, who is from the Lafayette Crisis Center. Her work has been invaluable to the fight against sexual assault, and I am honored to share a stage with her tonight. Without further ado, our next speaker, Karen Michler. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for attending the vigil, and a big thank you to Delta Tau Delta Fraternity for hosting this event and bringing awareness to the problem of sexual assault. I became involved with the Delts about 6 years ago. They asked the Lafayette Crisis Center if someone would speak to their group about sexual assault prevention. I volunteered to go, and it has become an annual event. Last August, at the end of my presentation, I asked the fraternity if they would be interested in doing a campaign on campus about sexual assault, and here we are tonight. The Lafayette Crisis Center got its start on Purdue's campus in 1970 as a hotline. Clinical psychology graduate students wanted to use what they were learning, so they approached their professor with the idea of a hotline. They collaborated with mental health professionals and began helping fellow students. Drug use was an early focus of the hotline. Today, the Crisis Center is a United Way agency and receives over 7,000 calls a year. Many of our volunteers are Purdue students. We have a 24-hour suicide hotline, but we handle other crisis calls as well. We are also the 211 center for 5 counties. Using our extensive database, we are able to refer people to much-needed services. We have a rape survivor advocacy program. Our advocates go to the hospital to comfort women who have been raped and apprise them of their rights. We also accompany women to the police station and support them in court. Lastly, we do various types of outreach in the community, talking about sexual assault prevention and healthy relationships. The Lafayette Crisis Center also offers 2 support groups, Women Who've Been There, for women who have been sexually assaulted, and Survivors of Suicide for people who have lost a friend or loved one to suicide. Please do not hesitate to call the Crisis Center if you need any of our services. Again, many thanks for attending this vigil tonight, and now it is my pleasure to introduce Purdue's Athletic Director, Morgan Burke.
Well, good evening, and part of our job is to put Karen out of business. we do our job, she should get far less calls. I am a Purdue grad. I was a Phi Gam once upon a time. My wife was a Kappa. My daughter was a Kappa. 2 sons that were Phi Gams. My comments tonight will be brief, but I hope on point. And the turnout tonight, given the weather, you all get extra kudos. If I could get Mitch to give you the day off tomorrow, I would. But I think your being here tonight signals the recognition that we have issues, and that these issues require all of us to better understand and respect boundaries. Many commentators today offer all kinds of views that the increase in violence is due to external factors. News media, video games, movies. I don't know if they're right or wrong, but whatever it is, it needs to be countered. There are way too many senseless acts, assaults, crimes, violent injuries. Our prisons are crowded. We spend more money on the corrections institutes than we do in our education, and we see many lives that are destroyed. So what can we, you and I, do to be part of altering or reversing the trend? I offer 3 things that each of us can do. The first one is be sensitive to one's personal space and respect boundaries. I guess another way to think about that is to treat others the way that you would treat your brother or your sister and the way they'd want to be treated. The second one is to have courage. Courage to lead, courage to act, and courage to protect. And the third is to be honest, manage with facts, and avoid premature conclusions. All too often, as was cited earlier, alcohol and/or drugs can be traced to assaults and violence. Those who could intervene and help someone who is heading into trouble seem to remain passive. Being passive is not an option. You've been presented with an opportunity, not one you particularly care for, but one to make sure that one's life does not take a wrong turn or somebody experience something that nobody should have to experience because of a senseless act. Take advantage of that opportunity and help. So tonight, my 3 themes are pretty straightforward: sensitivity and respect for boundaries, courage to lead, to act and protect, and honesty. With the help of you, the help of me, and all, we can figure out ways to reduce the awful consequences associated with the assaults, physical, verbal, or otherwise. It really was within our grasp. So boiler up, hammer down, and hail Purdue.
My name's Orville Jacobson. I'm the chapter advisor at Delta Tau Delta. It turns out that I'm the closer for this event, which wasn't the main plan. But in any event, it just happened to work out that way. I'm sorry this isn't a candlelight vigil. That was our intent. It was my intent even when we were going to have this event here until I got a call from Planning Resources saying we don't do candles in any Purdue facilities. And I can understand why, with a significant number of people with candles running around this building. First, let me thank you for coming out this stormy afternoon. As was told to me by the commanding officer of the Air Force unit here, Seth Breschler, when I addressed the vigil with him in Christmas break, he said, "What did you have for a backup plan?" Well, and then he went on to say, "Because you know it's always sunny in West Lafayette in April." Well, I'm glad I took his advice and got this facility. Who knows what lurks out there at 8 o'clock tonight. Secondly, I'd like you to think about this vigil after you leave. Let us know if you'd attend next year. I'd like to hold another one. And I'd have it as a sub-theme, which would be 10 to the power of 4, approximately equal 10 to the power of 2, which stands for 10 to the 4 participants and 10 to the power of 2 organizations supporting this vigil. What an impact statement the Purdue community would make if we had a We Honor Women event with 10,000 participants being made up of students, faculty, and administration personnel, all coming together as one. We met with Morgan. We talked about, wouldn't it be great if we could have such an outflow of attendance that we had to use Ross-Ade Stadium to hold the event. We had a couple scenarios on how we're going to close tonight. And the more I started to think about them, I thought maybe they were all redundant and didn't make any sense. So, therefore, at the close of the event, I want us individually to reflect on each of us and how we behaved badly in the past and didn't always act with honor and respect, which are 2 personal traits that I feel makes each of us who we really are. You know that honor and respect directly relate to sexual assault and its prevention here on campus. Now, why is that? And I don't know, Karen, she probably knows the number better than I do, but of all the assaults that normally take place, 90% or so, the people know each other. So you already know people, and you already have your honor and respect. So what I decided to do at the end of this event, I want each of us to reflect on your past. And I want you also to do it as you walk back to your dwelling, as well as ponder these questions at some quiet time during this next week. For men, how are you going to honor and respect those women around you, whether they are classmates, girlfriends, those you meet at social situations, or just pass on Hello Walk? If you don't behave admirably now, how are you going to act toward your future wife or mother of your children, if that be your case? For women, it's a double-edged sword, because it pertains to you as well. How do you honor and respect those men around you? Because that's directly going to affect your relationship with your husband if that's the path you choose. But it just isn't about how we relate to the opposite sex. How do we relate to people in general? Do we honor and respect them? Or do we simply treat them as objects? Just things we can use to suit our purposes, our personal amusement, or sport, only to be disregarded and put aside when no longer required and personally beneficial. And now the really big question is, how does honor and respect to each of us personally Do we honor and respect ourselves through our thoughts and our actions? How many times in our lives, when we wish we could have some do-overs, an opportunity to correct some injustice, make amends for something left said or unsaid, correct something harmful we did to another person, or just do nothing, or just by not doing something to help someone in need because we looked the other way or we didn't want to be bothered or involved? I recently sat down and thought about my major do-overs. Came up with 18. I would love to be able to do them over again. And one occurred in Vietnam. Unfortunately, very seldom do we ever have a second chance to correct wrong. What we therefore must learn is from our mistakes so that we can prevent them from happening in the future. My last point I'd like you to remember is that all of those around you are watching you, learning from you, possibly emulating you. How do you want to affect these individuals? Hopefully we can all be very positive on the influences and who we influence around us. So my challenge to each of us going forward is to personally examine your honor and respect values. Create your own do-over list. If you could do these situations over again, what would you have done differently to make them right? Now, I'm going to ask all of you to take maybe 3 minutes, silently reflect back on situations that you would have liked to have corrected, that you performed badly or less than admirably. And just start thinking about, if you had it to do over again or could do it over again, what would I have done differently? I don't know about you, but this probably wasn't enough time for this exercise. Try it on your own. Think about it over the next week. Thanks again for coming. Keep dry. Hopefully, we may see you next year. Depart in peace.
to the stage.